Go check out the Blue Collar Revolution podcast. First guest is Matt Walker, owner of Walker Inspection, been in the oil patch for 25 years. We go over how to get into the trades, what it's like to be an employable person, and the whole journey that he's been on. Let's go check it out. Mr. Matt Walker. Thanks for swinging by, man.
My pleasure, buddy.
Yes, sir. So you've been in the oil patch for 25 years, right? So what would you have for advice for yourself back in the day that you know now?
So I came out straight out of high school, went right to the patch. I think my biggest piece of advice that I would give myself now back then is, nothing's that serious. The oil field's kind of an open book, and the rules you build for yourself don't exist. Like, hit the ground and get after it. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not as locked down as people think. It's not as stringent. It's, get out there and work. Show them what you can do. And
then when you were kind of first getting started and throughout the journey, mm-hmm. what type of hang-ups, failures did you have?
Oh, boy.
And then what did you learn from those?
So those happen every day, all day. Your little path to whatever success you're looking for, there's dips in it all along. I mean, I just like any probably entrepreneur, business owner, startup guy, I just ground through a bunch of stuff, did a lot of things myself, worked a lot of hours, traveled. The hang-ups are usually trying to get some of these jobs done just by yourself, or things happening with your family while you're on the road, or, where's this money going to come from when the things break down and you haven't even taken a paycheck type thing. So that's one of the hard parts is the money. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't pay yourself from something you don't have. So,
right.
And then talking your wife into the fact that that's how you do this.
Yeah.
No money. So those are hang-ups.
And then you're pretty much on call in those beginning stages 24/7, right?
Yeah, I was. I went out and sold my service and then waited for the phone to ring. And in that world, your midnight somebody's lunch. They don't apologize for calling you at 2. Mm-hmm. They're working. You should be working. So, yeah, a lot of getting up in the middle of the night. If you had a heads up, you'd try to get to bed early or something, but usually caught off guard. Mm-hmm. Get up, stretch it out, cup of black, down the road.
A little black magic.
A little magic. Mm-hmm.
So I want to switch gears a little bit and go back to kind of how it all started, in high school and all that. Like, how did you grow up? Were you entrepreneur from the jump, or how did that kind of come about?
Well, I was not from the jump. I probably like anybody else in high school coming around there. I was just a kid. I was just living. My dad never had a job. He was an entrepreneur. So, I seen it out of the corner of my eye. Didn't know anything about it. But like what I do is what he did. I just adapted the things I learned to it. But, so like anything, like you think you strike out to build this business for, some sort of credit or some sort of accolade. And honestly, my story is the job I had ended. And there I was, like go get a job or build a job, or what do I do now? Like, it was born out of necessity. It wasn't a design,
Yeah. So what was that job, and why did it end?
Well, we were running drilling rigs that were drilling natural gas wells, and the price of natural gas plummeted, and the operators pulled out, and that was that. And so we noticed right about then that drilling for oil was starting to pop because the price was up and gas was down. So it took about 3 months between the drilling rigs ending and stacking out, and like thinking about what to do, because that was my dad's company. Like, I just worked there, mm-hmm. And ran these rigs, drilled gas wells, and then So yeah, we took this little time, like, well, what are we thinking? And he had money. He was kind of, whatever you guys want to do type thing. Like I worked my stuff out. We came up with kind of a game plan, and we were going to approach this same oil field, different industry, different section, and didn't know anything about it. Like, I mean, to figure it out, I wound up in north of Rock Springs, Wyoming, trying to learn this craft on high pressure gas wells, and I did, and then I guess the rest you say is history. So
yeah, so now that process of basically necessity, right? Was that, did you have wife, kids, all that stuff going on, or?
Not technically. That was about, I had a serious girlfriend. So it was just a little bit before kids. Well, that's kind of a lie, actually. I had got married in 2011, and my job technically ended in about 09, going into 10. There was some residual get the thing shut down. So there was technically children on the ground. Right. Yeah, I guess by the time that happened. I mean, yeah. There were dependents.
Yeah. So you have 100 employees west of the Mississippi, and that's doing BOP testing, right? Like, explain what that is for people.
You bet.
Yeah.
So what we do is we do an oil field testing of safety equipment. So any oil and gas well, frack job, pipeline operation, there's parameters usually laid out by the federal government and then the state government. Anyway, having your safety equipment and your fail safes tested before you just race out into the blue and untap these monsters. So yeah, we come in and whatever the safety equipment is that controls these pressures from underground, our company puts these apparatuses together and then tests them to their maximum abilities before the job starts, so that there's a peace of mind that in the situation, this has been tested. It works. It can do what it's supposed to. And that kind of spans throughout the whole process of an oil well or a gas well. So yeah.
And that's probably a pretty clean job, right?
Yeah.
Just wearing
hella
white.
Clean. Yeah.
So.
Well, a lot of people don't probably know this outside of the patch. I mean, they drill oil wells with a fluid that's called inverted mud, and that's where you build the drilling fluid with diesel, because it holds these chemicals better. So I mean, when these little sprays come out of water, well, it's actually diesel and bentonite mixed together, and yeah, hard on your clothing, like. But we work it out. I mean, everybody Tyvek's up and got the suits, and you switch out 35 times a job. But no, you're under.
Right. Oh, all the way down.
Yeah, like looking up at these things, and
Yeah.
You're the guy getting dripped on, and the grease and the muck, and you know what it is.
So when you first started that, is that something where it was like just you going out in a truck, or did you have a small crew, or what was that process, and just kind of building this whole thing? Like how did that all come about?
No crew. My brother was floating around helping out. He kind of had a job as we started. No, I went myself because I didn't technically know what the job was. So I had to rely on myself to ask questions and then build a procedure based on, the first couple. I relied on the guys out there to almost unknowingly help me. I didn't advertise the fact that I was, as green as can be. But, I documented, asked questions, and wrote. And then when I got back to some sort of normalcy, I would do research on the situation. And then too, as I researched the federal regulations, and I had a pretty good idea, but yeah, it was important for me to build that process before I just sent, other humans out in the world with my name on them. So yeah, a lot of thinking about things, and as I did the job, scratching down an order of operations, and then, how you conduct yourself even on that site. I mean, you're shutting down a $60,000 a day operation to get your little piece done. Yeah, so you don't want guys standing there toe tapping you.
Right. So you kind of have to obviously be you as a business owner and entrepreneur, a little more of a face and sales and all that kind of stuff, because you're on that site. You have to make sure that people think that you're professional, so then they hire you back, or it's like a tight knit group. I'm assuming where it's kind of like word gets around, right?
Yeah, word gets around. I'm pretty easy, so I got along with the guys I was working for, and actually some of those friendships are 25 years old. Same dudes. So, but no, you have to work it out. I mean, we can see by this interview, it's not about how you look professional. It's about the, the actions. Like,
yep.
I had some sales tactics, where, I looked unconventional, but like when it gets real, I'm the guy you want to show up, because I'll hook up. Yeah. I'm not going to leave you hanging. I'm not going to, I'll just get it.
Yeah.
So I used to use that. Do you want the suit and tie guy to show up when it gets real, or do you want the cat that, swings hard?
Yeah.
So yeah, there was some of that stuff where, I don't know. But yeah, you do have to, like, your job has to speak for itself.
Right. Yeah, you can't just be a slick talker and not have anything to
No.
back it up.
Yeah. I mean, it helps to get you in the door if you're a little slick, but then you got to show up.
Right.
And that was probably some of my biggest successes was, I could get myself in, but then, like, I didn't have any quit. Like, those guys loved it because I'd work till the job was done.
Right. Right. I guess that's kind of what it takes too, because it's not, like, especially blue collar jobs, they're not easy.
No.
But if you can kind of make a name for yourself where this guy don't quit, he makes sure that the job is done, like, you're going to go really far with that type of attitude and that kind of backing you. Did you, I guess now, being an employer, looking for employees, what would you say or tell people, hey, here's some things and some traits that you should have or work on to be more of an employable person?
Yeah, so, I mean, we all hear the tale. I mean, man, this generation, can't get it, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's not exactly true. I mean, society's built an environment where, guys like me will get phased. I mean, the get in and get her doners. But to be employable, I mean, any amount of self-responsibility. I mean, if you take a job, I mean, unless you intend on leaving, like, you owe them your time. Show up and do what's asked of you. There's a kind of a culture now where if you don't like it, I'll quit. And I mean, that's fine, but if you want to be employable and get up somewhere and get into the management structure later on and help move a thing forward, I mean, you got to start down low and you got to do what you're asked, and you got to have, decent input. And like I said, I don't think appearance has anything to do with it. Being respectful is one too. I mean, not in a sense of like, yes, sir, no, sir, thank you, sir. But I mean, the guys that came before you that ground to get the job and the opportunity started, I mean, you owe them some respect. They're not your daddy, but there's a level of respect owed. And then once you build those bridges and the respect's mutual, you'll find that, like, it gets seamless.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what we've noticed at, everyone over at Western Welding Academy, it's pretty crazy to see the kids that come in from all over the U.S., to Western, and they're there to work. So you hear the old Dodgers, and everyone's talking about kids don't want to work these days.
Yeah.
They're just on social media and all that kind of stuff. And I think some of that is true to some point.
Sure.
But there are those pockets of kids that show up and they're ready to rock and roll.
Well, I don't know a Dodger that'll outwork me. Like, that's for real.
Yeah.
There ain't no baby boomer going to put me in the dirt.
Yeah.
Like, I hook up.
Yeah.
And I'm on that cusp, though. Like, I don't know what profile I'm in. I'm probably a millennial if I had to break it down. And there ain't a boomer that put me away. I know that.
Right.
So those people exist. I think this one's Y or Z or Gen Z or something. And I have employees that are there's some that are the same. There's some killers out there.
Yeah.
You know, but it's a different world too, dog. We didn't have the social media
Right.
when we popped. And it's a useful tool. I mean, it's distracting, but it's all right. Build your environment to host those people. I mean, if you're running a company from the 50s, you got to find those guys. Guess what? They did.
Right.
So.
Yeah, adapting
Yeah.
to the times. Like, you just got to
Everybody
change your
does.
environment. Yeah, you have to, right? Yeah. Is it hard for you right now to find hands and people out there, or
No.
what is that looking like?
No. So a lot like Western Welding, dude, we built a culture where, I mean, we're looking for savages in the patch. And those guys exist. And they know we exist. So when you build that, like the baddest dude on the BOP testing thing is gravitating toward the baddest company. I mean, there's some, you know, throw out LinkedIn posts and Indeed apps and hey, what's going on? But just like that, it's a small community. Like say heavy duty oil field testing companies. You know, there's say 500 men that make that world up. Pretty small. And we know a lot of each other, and the baddest cats are headed for the same spot. Like, you know, they're not going to sit at, you know, on the B team and twiddle. No, they're coming. And so what we do is we make the opportunity available with different basins we operate in, pay. We pay killers killer wages. That's just it. And they know it. And so we build an environment where when you show up, I mean, there is some work to be done before you're just afforded these things. But cream rises to the top, Holmes. They don't stay in the middle long. So not really in that sense. Like just probably like you find in or students coming. The guys that want it.
Right. Right.
The other guys you don't need.
Yeah. If you want to work, you'll work.
You'll find
You
it.
know. Yeah.
Yep.
You'll see online. Everyone's like, oh, welders don't make much or plumbers don't make much. Like, well, you don't want to work, so clearly you're not going to make that.
Sure.
Right? Like,
Sure.
You can just figure it out.
Sure.
You know? You
Yeah.
got it in you.
Flex Fridays are nice, dude.
Right.
But the guys that want it will come get it. Like I said, we don't technically want the other ones, and trying to change somebody's whole being
Right.
to get them to do what you think. Well, it's just a waste of time and money. The guys are out there.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with the guys that don't want it in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, it ain't for everyone.
No,
Like
the
blue
yuppies
collar.
are the yuppies, dude. Like, and that's it. I mean, it's funny. I mean, yuppie's a young professional. Some dudes want that.
Yeah.
You know, not I.
Right. So what do you see as the difference between, you know, college and trade school? I know, you know, we've had this shift, or everything has been ingrained. You know, you and I and everyone before us for the past 30 years is like, you got to go to college to be successful. If you don't, you're a bum. Like, even parents are ashamed to say that their kid isn't going to college.
Right.
What is your take on that nowadays and moving forward?
Yeah, so I don't play that game, obviously, and luckily for me, my folks didn't. You know, my parents were blue collar killers, so they didn't have that. Yeah, they got through high school and whew,
Right.
thank God. You know, let's get after it. But dude, kids with a plan. Like, I got a 15-year-old son with a plan. Like, when he got to 9th grade, he rolled into the counselor's office and said, hey, I want to be a gastroenterologist for pediatrics.
In 9th grade.
Yeah, and they put him on the course and check in monthly his grades, with his class selection. He's like the end of this month, he's going to be visiting colleges. Not in that sense, but they see his GPA and his stuff. Like, he's got a plan. He is not blue collar. But I don't want him to be because of the drive he has and the focus.
Right.
You know, you need that cat working on your tummy too. Mm-hmm. The same guy that'll build the power plant, you need that same respect. So in that facet, that's fine. But the rest of us that didn't have that, well, there's no shame in going out and getting it the old-fashioned way, man. And a trade school is a perfect medium for, I don't really know, hey, here's these skills that are available. Once you fall into one and get your craft, I mean, I've seen your videos. Dude, the welds those kids laid down are art. There's plenty to be, you know, excited about in that field, and, you know, ashamed to go get yourself a $500,000 debt on something you can't figure. I mean, if parents are ashamed, they shouldn't be. And if they don't know these options exist, I mean, they ought to just peek, because there's some legit stuff. And some cash.
Right.
I mean, these aren't you know, low wage jobs once you hit your spot.
Right. Yeah, I think once you kind of start digging into stuff and see, oh wow, you know, $250, $300, $400 a year. Oh, that's a doctor, lawyer, attorney. It's like, nope, that's an electrician.
Yeah.
No, that's a welder.
That's
a plumber.
welder. Yep.
Yeah. Like what? That blows people's mind, you know?
I have plenty of men that probably don't have a high school certificate, that maybe started on the wrong track or this, that, or the other, that make $200,000 a year. I mean, and have built crazy little worlds for them and their family where, I mean, they're the guy. Mm-hmm. You know, we're talking about a place with a median income, 2 people, you know, trying to get to 100, 110. And here you got one man bringing home 200 G, and his family gets to just be. His wife gets to raise kids. His kids aren't at 10 years old building an anxiety of failure, of money. Like, no, dude wins.
Right.
You know, he built a utopia for this family, and the chances of them being successful, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, see a lot of kids that don't have a plan, but they're just like, oh, I'll go to college. That's my plan. Just go to college. Mm-hmm. And then they come out 4 years later or 5 years later and they're $200K in debt.
Burden.
And then, because now everyone has a college degree. It's like, and then, you know, you don't put that on a resume, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's fine, but we need results to show that you have proof and all that stuff. So now there's everyone with a college degree is poking, I couldn't even get a $40K a year job or a $50K a year job. Meanwhile, the guy that didn't even graduate high school has built and found his spot and was just a savage and just worked his butt off. And he's light years ahead of him, and just kind of, you know, just like you said, created this utopia for his family where his kids and wife can kind of like, you know, be home on the home front and he's out getting it.
Yeah. Well, I'm not an advocate for not graduating high school, obviously.
Right. Yeah. Anyone out there, like, please graduate high. It's not that hard.
It's not that hard, and becoming an adult early isn't cool either.
Yeah.
Get to 18, get the experiences, do the stuff. And, I mean, I'm not even against some frivolous college learning, like a 2-year associate's at a college so you can get an experience and meet new people. Of course. It's $10,000.
Right.
But once you realize that you don't exactly know the path and how to get there, because like my son, like he's mapping it early, and we didn't chat about that. You know, like, it's actually a funny thing is he got diagnosed with Crohn's disease, so we went to Denver. And his gastroenterologist, whatever that is, somebody ought to clear that up later, what that's called exactly. But that guy had such an impact on him and he was already smart, like very dedicated. That guy had such an impact on him that he started to think about that path. And as a father, It don't hurt my feelings that another man had an impact on my son. Perfect.
Right.
You know, I probably wasn't going to bridge that gap.
Right.
So the doctor, you know, whoever, I do know his name, I'm not going to pop it, to Dr. Dude, thanks, man. You did that yourself by just doing your job and actually being a blue collar killer yourself. Mm-hmm. You know, you're a human. So there's cool stuff, but yeah, hit high school, grab a little college if you want the experience, I suppose. But then if you can't figure it out, I mean, either A, get to work, or B, check out some of these other options. Because, yeah, the money exists. And the slimmer we get out there, dude, the more it's going to cost.
Right. Because right now we're in a huge deficit for blue collar workers, right? I mean, if we're not doing something about it, then we're kind of all screwed, right?
Right. And if two is we're getting people as a second option, like they couldn't find their little, so well, I guess I'll
fall back.
Well, dude, you're building the infrastructure of America. This ain't where you fall back.
Right.
This is where the cream of the cream come.
Yep.
Yeah, the skyscrapers you're trying to be a yuppie in.
Right.
Like the cats build that. Like it's not a fallback.
Right.
I mean, it's as real as it gets. So, you know, we don't want the fallback, although we'll take them because it's, you know, it's an equal opportunity setup. But I mean, and the people that figure it out usually from their parents or somebody close to them, like, hey, this is a real deal. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a pile of money. And the right cats, there's great benefits, owner interest, opportunities for entrepreneurs. I mean, once you learn the skills, they're yours. That's it. You don't owe them to dude back there. Mm-hmm. If you can skin the kitty better, go for it.
So one of the other fields that you're in is commercial real estate, right? Mm-hmm. Do you have, what does that look like? And was that kind of intermingled within Walker inspection days and all that?
Yeah, so no, it was, you know, it was a byproduct. As I got Walker inspection kind of, you know, moving and shaking, you have to have these locations. And I'm like the rest of the natural world. At first, I was leasing. And then as I started to make some money, some smarter people above me were kind of helping, you know, and usually financial guys. Like I had a really good accountant that was old school and threw in some of that to me, some of those tidbits. And then my old man, slick dude, he kills. But it dawned on me that, like, this business can afford you to own that. And then you can lease it back to this business. And so there's a whole dance that goes along with that. And I mean, it's like anything, once the money exists, you got to figure out what to do with it. You know, and blue collar guys don't like to give all the money to Uncle Sammy. So you stuff and you figure out how to build your empire, or so to speak, or your whatever. So yeah, it was kind of natural. And as I moved around the country, I leased and got comfortable and then bought or built or did whatever, you know, to make sure.
Did you have any, like, what were a couple of the examples of buildings that you built and kind of how'd that come about?
Yeah, so I landed down north of Denver, Colorado about 2012, leasing buildings and just, you know, slaying in the patch. Denver's a tough market. Really expensive real estate. Like it's horsey. And then Denver and the surrounding areas is growing at you've spent some time in D-Town, growing at a phenomenal clip. So there just wasn't anything to rent. You were having to always make do. So I'm getting into 2016. We'd just come through a pretty good bobble in the patch where we had to, you know, make some tough decisions. We're on the upstroke, and like I'm tired of playing the game, tired of being in the single bay next to the, you know, tortilla manufacturer doing my dance. So I go out and I find some raw land just north of Denver, and I decide I'm going to build a facility. Anyway, my plan was I was going to build it as kind of a duplex, me here doing my thing, and then a rental so that they could help accommodate me and pay. So I started down that road. Another skill set that I learned was I did a off jump build industrial property in the state of Colorado with never doing it. So I figured out a lot of things, and I met people and researched, and I started this project, and I was getting pretty excited as I generaled it. I went and got my own GC for Weld County. And I mean, the funniest part of the project was the same problem I was having was everyone's problem. And before I could even get the tin on, these investment groups rolled in and started offering money because they had clients that needed them too, and blah, blah, blah. And so, funny to say, like, I never moved in. Yeah, they laid down the cheddar and that was that. Yeah, so I mean, I turned a actual have to have it to do my job into a few $1,000,000, and then I went back to my tortilla shop and just, got after it again. I guess it was okay. Yeah. And then kept my eyes peeled, and as other things came up, I was more on the spot to get them.
Right.
Yeah.
So now how many buildings do you have right now, would you say?
Oh, I probably own 15 or 20.
And that's all
raw land, buildings, all kinds of things. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're kind of always having some feelers out there and all that stuff, looking for those opportunities to build the empire pretty much, right?
Well, yeah, I don't. And here's a tidbit for blue collar kids. After you get to a comfort level of money to live your life, the money doesn't have any utility anymore. It's not exactly real. Having millions of dollars in a bank account isn't any better than having 100,000 in a bank account if you're having skills that are cash flowing your existence. Once you figure that out and you stop trying to save for the Armageddon, like, get your nest egg and then make that money work. That's what I do. That money has no business in my pocket. So, as I'm rolling through Oklahoma, slaying in the patch, what's going on there? What's hot there? What's land doing there? I mean, it takes you 25 minutes to think about it and then jump on, LoopNet and take a peek around. When I'm down around Midland, Texas, what's happening there? Like, that's a hot spot for blue collar kids. What's going on? Like, is it up coming down? Is it down coming up? There's the best part about real estate, the thing that makes you the most successful is where you obtain it at. Just like a house, if you buy it at the very, very top, there's only one way to go. Now, you never find the bottom always, but, get in the middle and let it roll. Like make sure you're making informed decisions. Like, real estate can eat your lunch if you're just out there scratching checks.
Right. Is that something, so say moving into real estate, you want to kind of be established first, and then that's kind of like
that worked for me. I had enough things going on that I couldn't focus on real estate as a job. Right. So, I didn't have any business just, cracking the whip on things I wasn't sure about. So as I established my oil field service company and I started to get employees and things, and I was building this little hub, well, then it gave me the thought process of studying the landscape around me a little more. Because necessarily where I was set up doing the job, maybe it worked for me fine, but as far as a real estate standpoint, it might not have been the best spot to own it.
Right.
Yeah. And it does help too, say in my case, like, I get to be my tenant, so, I know the checks is coming.
Right.
And I do own real estate that other people rent, and I make good decisions about who I choose. So, yeah, there's plenty of kind of guidelines. I mean.
Yeah. So when it comes to rules and all that stuff, you seem like a guy that's probably not too fond of them.
Sure.
What is that, what are some different stories that you have about the established rules, like you were saying, you just establish your own and then you're kind of in that mindset.
Yeah.
What was that process of, hey, there was some sort of rule that you saw, you dipped around it, you had some success, and then maybe another story where it's like in contrast, you saw some failure.
Yeah. So what I've learned in my, I don't know if it's long or short at 20 some years. It's short in the sense of the United States, but it's long for me. 90% of the things that held me back were rules that I built for myself that did not exist. I built this real tidy little box and then I crawled in it. Hey, I can't get out of here. Well, it wasn't the government, wasn't the bank, it wasn't a regulator. I made those up, dude, just 'cause. So there's real rules, we're not just, running wild, but 99% of the ones that held me back were ones that I made subconsciously, put myself on this little dog leash and then just ran circles around the pole. The minute I figured out that I was doing it though, and that's when the world opened up. Now, like you said with contrast, not having rules for yourself is it can be detrimental too if you don't put any boundaries up. There has to be bumpers in your little bowling lane, or else it's all gutters, dude. The problem is don't build rules for yourself that you can't understand, like you can't, you can't make sense of. The boundaries you put on are don't go too far into debt, don't spend more than you take in, good safety practices, don't have to explain yourself in court, that kind of stuff. But I'm saying, like, my dad never took any debt on, and I'm never going to take any debt on. Well, dude, there's a difference between credit card debt, for Amazon junk, and a structured business loan to help you get to the next level. You get back in that little my daddy and granddaddy never did. Well, your granddaddy and daddy may have never broke, out of their shell. So that's what I mean by that is there's real stuff out there that you need to focus on. And there's business ethics. I mean, just general rules of business, acceptable practice, no matter what you're doing. And there's safeguards to keep yourself from getting into a hole. But the rules you build in here, why you can't, well, that's all those are. Is that's just, and the guys that break out, that's who sees the light.
Right.
Yeah.
So kind of like, rules, same thing as mindset type of stuff, right? It's kind of like what's your mindset? What are the opportunities? Maybe you have your blinders on.
Yeah.
Can you think of anything specific that comes to you of those, 99%? What were some of those rules that you would tell yourself and all that back in the day before you were able to kind of break out and see the light? Sure.
So the money one was a big one. Being scared of borrowing money to get something accomplished. That was probably one of the worst, because what it did was it fueled this, like, well, what if I can't pay it back? Instead of my thought process being, man, what if I pay that back in 3 months and then just smoke this out of the park? I was, what if I can't? What if this? What would I have to sell to square that up? Because the other thing about a blue collar killer is they're not going to leave anybody holding their bag. That is the blow.
Right.
Like, hey, sorry, Mr. Banker, couldn't figure it out today. That ain't how blue collar killers work. You'll go get a job to pay that bill. And so it brings you back just a tad to where you're starting to think like, what if I can't? What if this? What if that? You're like building scenarios and game plans on things that haven't happened.
Right.
And only have a 50% chance of happening. And if you step your game up, a 5% chance. You know, when you scratch a lottery ticket, you got 1%. You'll scratch those dudes all day, though. You know what I mean? Like, it's an opposite thing when you're talking about yourself and you're having that discussion. So that's the big one. And then also too is, do not take this the wrong way, but for the oil field, hiring women. It felt like a weird spot out there because it's a very physical job and it can get naughty. There's, you know, you've seen DJT, there's locker room talk. Building an environment where women could work there got to be important to me because not just office and those things, but, you know, I got a handful of women in physical jobs that I'm happy to have. At first, I was spooked. Like, well, I ain't getting myself into a sexual harassment case just because I'm bored. And that was crummy thinking on my part. And I fixed that one pretty quick because I had met some women that could, you know, get it. So that was a rule I built for myself that I took along with me a couple of years there, and then finally like, okay, dude, this is ridiculous. You know, like I'm passing on bad, you know, I guess I about blurped. I'm passing on bad asses because I made this rule up. You know, and that was hogwash. So that was a good one. The money one, like being diligent, and when you get a little debt for a opportunity, you know, making sure that I was doing it the right way, and then just take that thinking out. Like, what if I don't make it? Like, okay, what's my plan to get this done faster, sooner? Who do I hire to help me to bang? You know, those were avenues I wound up taking. And once that happened, I mean, 90 days type of like later, I could see it.
Right.
It wasn't years, dude. It was pretty immediate.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't the next day, but I mean, it was inside the course of 90 to 100 days. You know, like, ooh, hey.
How did that come, like, did that just come to you, or did you read a book or something about it? Just having that switch, like that 90-day switch where a couple of those things just went off. Like, oh yeah, I can take out some money if it's for a business.
No,
like, where did that come from?
That's from being in the mix. And then when you get into the mix, starting to educate yourself on, you know, and that's the thing technology does for us is we've got the world at our fingertips on people's mistakes that they've already made that they'll tell you. And if you look in there, successful people are telling you that. I mean, you got the guys that are telling you, I borrow money because I don't pay taxes. Well, that's garbage. You know, 99% of responsible people have this obligation to try to get to a state of debt-free just so that you're not a burden and that you're self-reliant. But there's credible people out there that have done things, and it's documented, and their playbook exists. So, yeah, once I backed myself off of the rules to where I didn't let them govern my thought process, well, then I started thinking how I would want it done myself. Because that's what you got to remember too is, I mean, you can listen to all the stuff Warren Buffett says you want. You're not Warren Buffett.
Right.
So how do I want it to do? And then I'd grab those tidbits. That makes sense to me. And then what ends up happening is, and most entrepreneurs that you'll interview, this will be the case, your style emerges and your way of doing business emerges. And then the more successful or the more like little victories you build, it becomes that. Right. And then it's a very clear path.
Yeah, I think that's what I see. Guys are like, oh, I can't get a job, or I can't start something. I just don't know about it. Like you said, at your fingertips. Like everyone in the past has documented, not everyone, obviously, but there's podcasts, there's books, there's YouTube. I mean, YouTube is...
There's Google, Wikipedia.
ChatGPT. Like it's insane to hear people. I don't, where do I learn that from, or how do I can't figure it out. It's like, I guarantee you could. You just got to be focused on it and actually want to do it. I think, like, you know, the blue collar trades and everyone, it's not for everyone.
No.
Just like college isn't for everyone. We go on this blue collar tour every year. We go into the high schools, and you can tell the kids, they're not sitting at their desk. Like, they're excelling in their welding class or their construction class, because all the other teachers kind of write them off on, oh, little Johnny's just a jackrod. He's just
a
messing
redneck.
around. Yeah, he's just some redneck, and he's just not focused. And then you cam him over into a welding class or something, and the welding teacher's like, he's freaking killing it.
Yeah.
You know, like, there was one school I remember, we're in Oregon, and the welding teacher said, we have this kid that was written off by all of his teachers, right? All the teachers are like, hey, this he's gonna fail. He's failing all of his classes. He jacks around all the time. He's skipping school. So good luck with him. He went into welding. First like week, he just got it. And he was like, this is what I want to do. And that teacher was telling us he completely changed in the other classes as well, because now he found something, or found his passion, and he started excelling and actually like caring now.
Yeah.
And then when he graduated, he went outside. You know, it was 6 months after he started his own business as a welder, and like started his own business, and then ended up teaching at a local college, like some welding classes and everything. And I don't think that people see the opportunity if it's not presented to you. So in all these high schools and everything, they're getting rid of shop class and they're getting rid of all this. Well, they're taking away opportunities that you just gave that kid that isn't a good fit for college.
Yeah.
He could be an absolute savage stud, start a big company, change his community, whatever. But if kids don't know that exists, then they're not going to find it, and they're just going to be that jackragging, you know?
Yeah. Like, one of the things in that little tale that's important to me, and a thing that I keep on the front of my mind as I'm doing whatever I'm doing, is, you know, everybody's got to have a mentor. And it does not have to be your dad or your grandpa. Like, that's important to know. And it's not a bash on dads and grandpas. This whole world is made up of different folks. And however you fall in the spectrum, I mean, and you have to find some of your own mentors. I mean, they just don't show up in, well, hey, Billy, what you been doing? It's not exactly how that works. Like, you have to gravitate toward them just like they do you. So, like that, like a welding teacher, probably put some time in on Jackwagon Jones and got that to spark. And I bet there were some talks there like, well, dude, if you get suspended for failing your classes, this is done.
Right.
And he probably worked through some of that. And all of us that have started a business and had one more than 10 years, you've been mentored, and you have mentored in some regard. And those things are what, to me, like, that's an added benefit that money can't buy. Anytime a thing you say or an action you do, you can see in physical form change somebody, that's where the shit gets real.
Yeah, like gratifying. You can see it
Yeah.
firsthand, like two things that you said, like a side conversation, all of a sudden it just completely veers this guy in the right direction. That's pretty powerful.
Very powerful. It's, you know, it's, like I said, it doesn't always have to be somebody within your family. And there's a lot of dudes and chicks out there that don't have that person. You know, a thing I'd say for moms and dads right now, don't sit next to your kids scrolling the same as they are. I mean, you know, take 5 minutes to think about your actions. Now, when you're alone on the commode, rip through those things, dude. Check out the new latest. But, you know, like a role model for your kids being just zombie land, you know, like take 5 minutes. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of it. Showing funny videos back and forth, showing your kid an educational video on YouTube. Cool. Send him one to a text. But I've done it. and I've seen it happen at my house, is all of us just, TV's not even a thing anymore. Why? It drives me nuts. Like, well, you can't even enjoy it together. You're laughing, and I don't know why.
Right.
When we watched Black Sheep, we all got to laugh at the same time. So everyone's guilty of it, but a thing that I've noticed, and I would pitch out there to 40-year-old mom and dads with up-and-coming teens, be a little bit conscientious of how you're operating.
Yeah.
Mow your grass.
Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mentors and kind of choosing your mentors, I think the teachers maybe don't understand how much power they have. Like those teachers kind of growing up, maybe they do, and that's part of their job is, I know teachers don't get a lot of money, they don't get paid, but that gratification of seeing the kid that maybe been, going down the wrong direction, or they know that at home is not the great environment, but they can create that supportive environment at school where sometimes the kid doesn't even want to go home because he knows how crappy it is and dark and all that stuff. But if you can create that safe place where you can, be the bounce board or the springboard for that kid and just watch him excel. Like that's the power of the teachers now in high school. And I don't know, that's just really what we try to drive in is like, hey, you guys are the baseboard for these kids to then go off into the real world and do whatever they want to do. So make sure to don't take that for granted.
Yeah. Well, it's important for us entrepreneurs too, and anybody, not just entrepreneurs, but anybody with the time and maybe some of the financial resources is, teachers do get hamstringed on what they can and can't do. Certain amount of education is discipline, certain amount is, so I think some teachers, it just gets to be status quo. Now, this is a little reverse thing I've thought about a lot, especially when me and you talk off camera. We've obviously known each other 25 years. Even the kids with the bad situation and the mentor comes up, I think about this, when someone does do that for you, it's not their fault that your family and life is terrible. Like say thanks and show that. Help them get the gratification, because that's what drives the little wheel too. Like don't forget that. It's not just about poor Johnny, daddy's drinking. That sucks, Johnny. And we all have our tales, but when someone does engage you and do some of that and you can feel a positive change, reciprocate.
Right.
Kick back a little thanks. And then what that builds too is it builds this humanity thing where, you're starting to do things for people and not for a thank you, but when it's thrown down or someone you can tell is genuinely thankful that you did what you did, those are your gasoline, man. That's what keeps your little engine going. For sure. You can see it too, and oh man, old Johnny got better and I helped out on that. But it's Johnny's responsibility too to accept, or hey, you actually stepped out when I needed you. You didn't have to. Appreciate you, dude.
Yeah.
That's easy to do. That's easy to say. A lot of us ought to do that. Say thanks, say sorry.
Yeah, acknowledge the fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then I think it does bring that not reassurance, but that extra oomph for the mentor to be like, oh, okay, they see what I did for them, and it's kind of full circle, and I did the right thing.
Well, yeah, dude, they got lists to check off too, and making sure they're doing a good job.
Right.
It's got stuff on it. This ain't some robot that they produced to teach you.
Right. So with all the success that you've seen and all that over the last few years, what would you say is luck, and what would you say is, hard work? What's the balance?
Yeah. Well, do you ever hear that saying, the harder I work, the luckier I get? That's real. But some of my opportunities showed up pretty close to the right time. Mm-hmm. I would never say 50-50, but I would say 25% luck, 75% attitude and work ethic. Once you start, and I'm not going to say successful because that's an undefinable.
Right.
But once you're operating and the wheels are turning, the opportunities show up in different forms. I mean, at home on the Xbox, it's going to look pretty bleak out there.
Yeah.
You know, like crap. You know, start a worm farm, Harry. But once you're rolling, dude, the stuff happens. People need things. You know, companies need things. Industries need things. Then it ain't luck. It's about putting the pieces together. And you're usually lucky to the mentors you find, bumping in, figuring out. You could be lucky in the fact that a certain thing happened that got you to realize something was there. But if you don't do anything about it with some conviction, smoke. It's all smoke. So
Right. Yeah, I think doing the research and working your off to get to those opportunities where you're aware that there's luck around.
Right.
Like I think there's luck everywhere, but you didn't work your butt off or do enough research or read enough books to even be aware that luck was right here on the side of your head.
Yeah,
the whole
following
time.
you down the road.
Yeah, next door.
No, that's it. That's it. The harder I work, the luckier I get. That's as real as it comes. I don't know who popped that off.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I think you did just now.
It may have. Yeah.
Matt Walker, anything else that you would like to talk about or add, and anything that you would want the world to know?
There's tons of things I want the world to know, dude. But you guys, Tyler Sassy, all that stuff, blue collar, just what the doctor ordered. I just appreciate you're doing that. I'm going to do my part, and it's reassuring to know that there's guys out there doing theirs. Anybody watching, don't go out and start a business because you watch these podcasts. If you've got a hankering and a feeling, dude, don't be scared. Make informed decisions, find mentors, research, but there's no boogeyman. Hard work's the ticket. Realizing opportunities when they show up, because sometimes they show up and look like work. That's what I think. Just keep sharp. But grateful that you guys do what you do too. I mean, I appreciate being on here and pitching my thing, but same thing on the thanks and sorry and how you been is, this is an important situation, and you're doing a great job, and the guys, all the guys and gals involved. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
Cool. Matt Walker, thank you so much for being on, man.
My pleasure, baby.
You're doing awesome out there.
Thank you.
Keep killing it. Super cool, and can't wait to do it again next time.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.